Hello and welcome to this edition of All About Hopkinton, the original HCAM series created to bring you the people and organizations that help make our community the great place that it is. There are a lot of people dedicating their time, energy, and talents to improve some aspect of life in our town. I'm honored to be sitting here, talking with them and sharing their stories with you. Joining me today is Eric Hardy, Hopkinton's Water and Sewer Manager. Welcome, Eric. It's so nice of you to take time out of what a very busy schedule I know you have to come and be on the show today.
Thanks, Mary. Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. I like to start with getting our guests to give a little background on themselves so our viewers know who you are and anything you want to share with our viewers.
I'm a Hopkintonian, born and bred, was raised here, went to school here, remained here. Been here on the job now, I think I'm going on year 33 with the water department.
Congratulations.
Well, thank you. I started part-time when I was going to college. I read the meters, and then I graduated with a business degree, but enjoyed the guys and the gals down at the department and just ended up staying there, and I've enjoyed it ever since.
Well, you must have started when you were 5 years old, because you don't look like you've been there 33 years. It's treating you well then. We have so many things to talk about. There's so much going on at the time we're taping this show. There's just many, many things going on in town that affects the water and sewer department and everything that you do. But maybe we'll jump back to last year a little bit and the terrible drought we had. Mm-hmm. You can talk a little bit about how that affected us, and are we still feeling any effects of that?
Yeah, that was a big change for us. Normally, New England is thought of as water rich, and we've had some kind of mini droughts before, but last year was a really tough one for us to get through, based on the increase in population that we have, the increase in the water demands that we have. We had tough time keeping up last year, along with our neighbors that we share a plant with in Ashland. And what we've been trying to get across for many years now, that we have a really tough time in the summer meeting demand, and it's mostly because of the outside usage. The demands in the summer increase, almost double during what they are for the rest of the year. So we try to, each year, I try to write a letter in the Independent and give people tips and conservation tips on how they can use water effectively. And more people are taking advantage of those tips and doing it. If we can get everybody to just comply with our state-regulated water restrictions, then we should be able to make it through most summers, even not quite last year with the extent of the drought we had. But just going forward, we have to get that mindset of everybody that we have to conserve. We need to turn water sprinklers off for the lawns if it's just rained or it's going to rain. We just have to get in the habit. It's always been just set it and forget it in the spring is kind of the industry term, and we have to leave it off and only turn it on when you need it, if we're going to make it through the years to come with the population growth that we have in town.
Well, I'm making my contribution because I don't think I've watered my lawn in 15 years, and it shows.
I'm right there with you.
Yeah, but I understand that, the water usage in the summer with people filling their pools and wanting to water their grass more and wanting to power wash their homes and things. There's a lot of extra water usage, I can imagine that.
There is,
But the exciting thing is, there's lots of exciting things. I shouldn't say the exciting thing, but one of the biggest ones is the new DPW facility. How is that coming along?
Yeah, great. We've had several tours along the way. We've been able to see the progress. They're coming along really well. It's going to be great for us to be able to have all of our equipment in one spot and under one roof. Ever since I've been here, we've been talking about getting a new DPW, and it's been great that the residents, supported our need for that, and realized the job that we do, and being able to stay on that same spot, centrally located, and have the equipment that we have. It's, the town has been very generous to us in buying the equipment. It's expensive, and most of it's been stored outside over the years, and it deteriorates. So being able to keep that all under the roof and keep it in pristine condition is huge. So it's going to be a great deal. I've been working out of a trailer for, I think, 16 years now, and kind of used to it. So it'll be nice going into an office, but I'm used to the trailer. So.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, having to work out of, say, temporary location or facilities, it doesn't seem to have affected you and your team too much. You're still doing a great job.
No, yeah, we're mostly out on the road anyway, so we just, in for checking phone messages and email when we're in the offices.
All right, so you expect the new facility to be done approximately when?
The last that we checked, they were on schedule for beginning of November for us to start moving back in.
Okay. That's November 2017, because we may show the show sometime later after that too. But, well, that's good news. I hope they stay on track
Yep.
for you. And speaking of new things, there's also a new meter system that I haven't heard about. So can you tell us about that?
Yeah, we started at town meeting. We voted 3 years ago to institute a new meter system that's much more efficient at doing the readings. We've got most of the pieces in place for that. And one of the big benefits to it we're trying to utilize is basically it'll help people find leaks in their home a lot quicker. That oftentimes there's a toilet leaking or even a faucet dripping, but more so the toilets. A lot of times people don't hear the toilets because it only cycles on after the bowl is already drained out. And we bill currently every 6 months, so it can gradually build up, and people find out 6 months later that all of a sudden, we had a toilet leak, but they didn't think it was that much. So the new system's going to help us identify that and let people know that it looks like there's a big spike going on. You might want to check that, and it'll help lower the consumer's bills, help save water. So it's good all around. It's much more accurate too. In the old days, when I first started, that was my job. I would go out, pen and pencil, go up to the house, jot it down, read it, would go back to the office. They'd write it in, and then it had to be typed into a computer, so there was lots of room for error there. So now everything's just done electronically and much more efficiently and much more accurately, which helps us cut down on mistakes and helps get the homeowners their accurate readings.
So is there anything involved actually at the homeowner's location, or is this is the new meter system installed at your end?
We've done most of the work already. We've installed the readers on the outside that we're able to do. We will be going back another time and just updating. There's several more meters that we have to replace, some of the older meters, just to work in conjunction with this system. So we'll be instituting another plan for that in order to update the rest of the meters that haven't been updated yet.
Oh.
And so we will have to get into some consumers' homes to do that part of it.
Okay, so if they haven't been contacted yet, they will be to have the new meter installed?
Correct, in the future.
And does that affect, condominiums and apartment buildings?
Yeah, any place that there's a
any
meter. Yeah,
businesses?
Most of the bigger ones we've already taken care of. It's mostly just residential now that we need to get back into. It's places that, when people work, we have to try to accommodate their schedule. So it's places we weren't able to get in the first time around that we'll be trying to schedule to get back into.
Okay, that sounds like a really good thing. I know the leaky toilet can really add up.
Yes.
In fact, I'm in the process of looking at replacing my toilets because they're, 35 years old.
Yeah,
and,
they're probably the old 6-gallon. They're down to 1 gallon flush now. They're
Yeah,
much more
I could
efficient.
save a lot of water and,
Right.
and save off my water bill, so that'll
Yes.
be good.
Yep.
Speaking of the water, let's talk about water supply and quality. I have a lot of questions there, so
Sure.
where would you like to start on that?
Well, we've got a lot going on in that department. We've had several studies done over the past couple of years, and one of the ones we're going to be implementing soon is over at our Fruit Street location. We have 3 separate well fields over there, and we're looking to build a blending facility. The water in New England is pretty consistent with iron and manganese, just due to the geological structures that are underground, and those can cause staining and some taste considerations in the water. So we're looking to bring all of our sources together and blend them together. Some of the water quality is better in one location than the other, and that way it'll give a much more consistent water source coming out that we're able to treat in one spot versus treating 3 different spots, and make the water quality much more improved, and hopefully be able to give us a little more capacity of what we can pump out of those wells in addition.
Now, that's a project that's already in progress?
Yes, the engineering's being done on it now, and it's looking in the sometime in the fall to get started with the actual implementation. It'll be at one of our existing well fields. We already have the building there. It'll just be changes inside the building in order to bring some of the other sources in and treat them all in this one particular building over on the Fruit Street property.
Okay, sounds good. I'm always curious about water supply. I read in different towns around the area, many struggle with being able to supply enough water to their homes and their businesses.
Right.
And with all the development that we've had going on in Hopkinton and seem to continue to have, can you talk to us a little bit about how does the town determine if they're going to be able to supply the water to the development? And is that a potential that it could restrict development if the town determines we wouldn't have enough water?
Sure. Yeah, well, about 3 years ago, 4 years ago, we developed 2 sources down on the eastern part of town, the Aprilla Farm wells, and that was done as part of an agreement. The town entered a host community agreement with Legacy Farms. So they developed those wells for the town, and that was part of that project for supplying water to them. But that water is also available for us to use throughout the system to supply the entire town. Going forward with developments coming on, we have a couple things that regulate us. The DEP regulates how much water can be withdrawn from each community. So there's a specific number of what can be drawn out of the ground and supplied. We have engineers that are working on looking at all of our supplies, what we can safely take out of the ground and use, and what we can take out of the ground versus our permit. So if a developer comes in and wants water, the request, they have to let us know, what they're looking for in terms of volume of water, and then that analysis is run through with the engineers to determine, whether we can provide that water to them. Basically, the DEP is pretty much the only one that can restrict people from not having water. They would have to declare a water moratorium for the town in order to keep anybody from getting town water. But so once we get near that permit figure, that's basically what happens. The state would issue a temporary restriction on that till additional sources or water was found.
So does your department at all get involved with a development that, say, is going to use wells for their water sources for whatever they're developing?
The Board of Health handles any drinking water wells. There were back probably early 90s when the town ran into water supply issues before we had some of the new sources come online. There was some restrictions in place, and there are several streets that run water just for fire protection only. So that's always an option too for the developments. If we ever get to that point, they can certainly request to have the water just for fire protection, because the water is not being consumed. It's just filling up that pipe, and then it's there for fire protection.
Okay. And what about supply in terms of if a developer for a business or a residential area wanted to connect to town water and sewer? Do they come to your department and you make a determination if that part of town can be connected?
Correct, yes. They write a letter to the director stating what they are looking for, the volumes that they're looking for, and then that gets brought forward. We have all of our, both water and sewer system have been run through with our engineers for planning purposes of what the system can handle on both sides. So that gets basically run through an analysis as to what we have. Approximately right now, about 70% of the town has town water, and approximately 40% has town sewer. Some of the areas, mostly in the north area up past Saddle Hill, and some of the southern areas are on wells, just because the system does not go out that far to them. Basically, the center of town was the system in the 1800s when it first started. Actually, up where the middle school is now, where our water tanks are, when the water tanks being replaced, that was the original town wells, right there next to the tank, and then it spread out towards Woodville, towards East Main, and then it kind of was just in that geographical area back when there was only a few thousand residents here. So since they expanded, so the mains haven't quite made it to all the ends of town.
Well, I remember when I bought my home, it was on a septic. It had town water, but it had a septic, for the sewer. And I was so glad when I found out the sewers were coming through and I could connect. And I felt fortunate because they gave, at that time, in my area, they gave 20-year interest-free loans. So you could pay it off, So I think I have 3 years left.
Right. And just one other interesting fact on that, Mary, pretty much the state has gone 180 degrees in their thinking on sewers. Originally, the thought was, everyone wanted to be on sewer, get everything sewered, and just take the sewerage away. And they found after a few rivers went dry in some other parts of the state that maybe this isn't such a good idea. So now the mindset is pretty much done a 180-degree turn, and it's now, even though the sewers is trying to keep the water local and discharging it back into the ground in the area where you're pumping from, so you're not just constantly pumping water out without water going back in. So when the town did our plant about 4 or 5 years ago, that was one of the reasons for putting water back into the ground to stay here locally instead of being shipped out through pipes out to rivers and streams that eventually go out to the oceans.
So I may not have followed all of that just quite right. So you're saying that septic tanks are popular again?
Not so much that they're popular again. I mean, it's more the fact that if there is a sewered area, generally before, a lot of sewers were discharged into rivers and streams, and then that water would essentially be carried out to, eventually most of them end up in the ocean. So it's now just trying to keep that water locally. So whether it's a septic or treatment plants now are discharging back into the ground to keep the water in the ground versus running into a stream. Back when they were originally designed, most of them would outlet, after they were treated, of course, would go out into streams and make their way, out of the town's water basins.
Okay. Well, I'll just tell myself, whatever all that means, it's a good thing. Now, you did mention that way back in the 1800s in the center of town, it was pretty much the water system, and you said something about the tanks. And I know we're getting a new tank. Want to talk a little bit about the new?
Sure, absolutely. We've done some major work over the past several years. In fact, the water main in Main Street, we actually took a piece out that actually had the 1888 stamp on it, which we were able to save. We're going to put in our new DPW. So we've done some major upgrades in terms of the infrastructure in the town, replacing a lot of the older mains that will carry water much more efficiently, much cleaner, and also redundancy, so that if we have a break in a pipe, we're able to route water a different way and keep water running to the houses. As part of that upgrade of the infrastructure, we're also removed our 1922 water tank that just finished coming down last week. They took that down. And we're going to be putting up a new 1.0 MGD, a million-gallon storage tank in its place. The newer tanks are, a lot less maintenance. Again, it's going to have a mixer in it, which will help with water quality. And that's scheduled to come online late in the fall, so we'll be able to fill that up, and we'll have additional storage up there.
We're going to have a busy fall this year, that's for sure. Yeah, you and I were talking just a little bit before the show, and I had asked you, I had always had this misconception that those water tanks were filled and then they just stay filled, and you said no, that water is constantly refreshed.
It is, yes. Basically, what we do is we run our wells, predominantly during the day. They'll run, depending on the demand, they'll run to the tanks fill, and there's, it's called telemetry, that reads the level of the tank, and once the tank gets to full, it'll then shut off the nearest well to that, so it will stop filling. And at night, basically all that water is draining back out if there's demand. There's not a lot of demand at night, but it'll drain back out via gravity and supply the town with water. So they are constantly fluctuating, which you want them to do, because you don't want that water just sitting there going stagnant.
Yeah, I wouldn't make, after I thought about it, I thought, that doesn't make sense. It would just stay there. It would
Yes.
get very stale.
Yeah, and the system basically works off of gravity. So people that live right near the tanks, unfortunately, they have fairly low water pressure because that water pressure is generated by the height of the water in the tank. So a lot of people on the second floors that are near the tanks don't have the greatest pressure. I live on West Main Street, off of West Main, at the bottom of the West Main Street hill on Oakhurst, and I got the other problem because of the tank is so far up the hill, we have to have pressure reducers because it's about 100 pounds pressure. So.
And I'm trying to remember, and I can't, is it the smaller tank or the larger tank that's being replaced?
The smaller one
The
was
smaller
taken.
one.
The smaller one was 1922. The bigger one that's up there was 1966 and in a little bit better shape.
Okay. And will it look like the larger one, just smaller, or is the whole design very different
It's different.
now?
The technology is so much different now. It's basically a fiberglass material that won't corrode when it meets the water. Right now, the current tanks are steel, so as soon as the water interacts with the steel, that's when you start to get corrosion issues, and there has to be welding and other things that are done to repair them. So it'll be new technology that's easier to clean. Will help keep bacteria from forming. They'll have mixers in them, which will constantly keep the water moving even when it's sitting in the tank overnight, which will help with the water quality too. So it's basically a whole new design that is just much more efficient and better for the water quality as well.
And will that be done before school starts? It's only a couple of weeks, though.
Well,
Probably not.
No, the building part won't be. They needed to get all the demolishing work and all that done before school. So that's all been completed. So that part will be out of the way. Everything else that they're doing will take place on the water department property, which is fenced in, and won't have any effect with the school start up again.
So that's the new water tank. Are there any other system improvements that you'd like to talk about, water main or anything?
Yeah, we've done several over the years. We've got a few more that are slated to come up, trying to do some improvements on Cedar Street water main and Hayden Row Street water main. Those are going to be the next ones to go. We don't have anything going for this year. We're trying to get the engineering plans done to get those straightened out. We've really upped our water leak detection on the older parts of the system. We have a professional come in every year now. It used to be every 3 years, trying to find unaccounted for water so that we're saving water in that avenue. We've purchased a lot of new equipment over the years. The technology has just come a real long way. So we bought, they call them basically leak loggers that will go out and there's valves in the street that go down under the water main for shutting the different parts of the main off. We set these leak detectors out overnight, and they listen when it's 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning when there's no ambient noise, and they can detect leaks thousands of feet away and let us know almost to a pinpoint as to where they are. So we're deploying those as well. So we're really trying to just find every asset we can to help improve the system and tighten it up so that we're not having any lost water, which saves, both on costs and for our unaccounted for water.
That's very good to hear because, yes, with water supplies often, not meeting all
Right.
the demand. Well, I guess in Hopkinton we're doing pretty well, but there have been some concerns of it elsewhere.
Right.
that,
Everything is just very weather dependent.
You want to
here.
save every drop we
Yeah.
can, I guess.
Unfortunately, I'm one of the only people that like it when we go on vacation and it rains because I'm thinking it makes my job easier because
Yeah.
it's raining. I don't have to worry about running out of water. And I like snow too, and the snow melt is another big one when we have dry winters and you start the spring off. Really, snow is the best recharge because that just melts slowly back into the ground. When you get some really heavy downpours after a certain saturation point, a lot of that just runs off into the stream. So really having a nice good snow melt in the spring is one of the best parts of the recharge.
So you were probably the only person in town that loved that 10 feet of snow we had 2 winters ago.
I got sick of it a little bit by the end, but I was happy to see it.
It did give a lot.
But I'll tell you a funny story, although, because a lot of people thought the same thing. That snow content that we got that year, because it was so cold in February, the snow was so light and fluffy that although it built up high, there really was not a lot of moisture content in it. So it was surprisingly, it was not as effective as a lot of people thought because we had a drier spring that year and we did have some issues. And everyone said, well, we had a lot of snow, but it was because of how cold that February. It was a record-breaking February for cold, and the snow was just so light and fluffy that it didn't have a lot of moisture. So we like the wet snow.
Oh, I didn't think about that when I was clearing it off my
Yeah.
driveway. I
The good
just
news
wanted
was
to
it
get rid
was
of
easy
it.
to move, but it
Yeah, it
wasn't
was
good for
easy to move.
recharge.
Well, before I forget, I really wanted to go back and ask you about water quality. The testing that is done, how often,
Sure.
and in those reports, I get them and I look through them and I say,
Yep.
I think we're okay, but it seems like a lot of information.
Sure,
So
yeah, we
maybe you can-
encourage everybody to read them. We leave them on the website too. We are very heavily regulated by the Mass DEP and the EPA for the government of what we have to test for. There's very stringent testing requirements. Every month we have to test for bacteria all throughout the town. We test the tanks, the supplies, and then we have areas all over town that we check in addition to that to make sure that the water quality is good. In addition to those monthly tests, we have a schedule that comes from the state that literally there are thousands of constituents in the water that we have to test for on sometimes annual basis. There are a lot of things that if they don't show up, you have waivers for, you only have to test for them maybe every 3 years or 5 years because there's been no history of it. But there's just, that's one of the things that we do all the time. Every month there's always some type of testing going on for pretty much everything. Most of the names I couldn't even pronounce for you, but we do list everything on the site. We encourage people to go, look at the website, read the Consumer Conference Report because it has a lot of good information in there as well. One of the things we really also, if I just jump in and try to push, is we really try to communicate with the public as much as possible now, and some of the ways we do that is with the new media that we have. We have a Twitter feed that hopefully we'll be able to put a link up on the end to, and we use that stuff basically to get important information out. We don't try to deluge people with daily insignificant stuff. It's there for the important stuff, and the town also has on the websites a link where you can sign up for emails that come from the town. And again, that's not something, it's not a daily thing that we do that's going to go, just overwhelm your inbox. It's important information. For instance, if we have flow testing going on where fire hydrants are going to be flowed, that can stir up the water, and we want to let the public know because if you do laundry, there's a chance it could discolor some of the water for that. So we use it for very important information. So we really encourage people to sign up for those notifications because that's the best way you can get it. Now most people have it right on their phone. They can know what's going on. In an emergency, we use it. We also, if it was a major emergency, we still use the town's reverse 911 system to get the message out there so people know what's going on.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned about the emails. I will definitely go home and sign up for those. I do have a fire hydrant in front of my house, but I would just like to get those. I think they would be very worthwhile. And like you say, it's not, a deluge of emails. You're just going to send out important information
Correct.
you want people to get.
Yeah.
And we will, at the end of the show, in the credits, list the website and phone number for the department. for those, maybe some of our seniors who don't go on the
Sure.
internet,
Yeah.
I'll be able to call if they need information.
Absolutely,
and
yeah, we
request
welcome phone
something.
calls as well. We have a very good staff that's always able, and if they're not able to get the answer, we, tell them we'll call them back, because we'll get them the answer eventually,
Yeah.
if we don't have
And
anybody available.
I'd just like to say kind of a personal thing, with respect to quality of water is, please folks, don't flush your hazardous wastes and your medicines and everything down your drains. Use the hazardous waste days that the DPW provides.
Yes.
Maybe call your pharmacy or doctor as a way to get rid of medications that you have. Don't put it in the water system if you can avoid it.
Right, yeah, one, if I could just add onto that too, one other important part on the sewer side is, a lot of people they flush things down the toilet, don't realize they go. Some of the things that go down can cause backups, and it could eventually back up into the house, like the baby wipes are just becoming a real problem in the industry. People think that they're disposable, but they don't. They all go down, and they can clog up the sewer system, which can cause overflows, not only in the streets, but can back up into people's homes. So we have that on the town sewer page. There's a listing. Really, nothing should be going down there that should normally go in the trash, because it can really affect the system in some bad ways. And their home as well. They don't want their home backing up.
Well, that's all very good information, and I wish we had more time to talk. I guess I'll just have to go out and read the website some more, and also sign up for those emails so I can get all the information I need.
Great.
Thank you for being with us today,
All right,
Eric.
thank you very much, Mary. Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. And thank you for joining us for this program and hearing about Eric Carty and all the work he and his team do. For more information about the Water and Sewer Department, visit their website listed at the end of the show. For more information concerning All About Hopkinton, find us on hcam.tv. If you or someone you know is having an impact on our community, we want to hear about it. Send an email to jim@hcam.tv, and perhaps you'll see them sharing their story right here on All About Hopkinton. I'm Mary Arnott, and thank you for watching.